They say the moon makes you do crazy things, but in this case, those things are creative. I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are at the Rehoboth Art League checking out a juried member show focused specifically on the harvest moon. From canvas to wool and even glass, this show will put you in awe. Get ready, the 302 is headed your way. We are at the Rehoboth Art League talking about a juried member showcase called Harvest Moon. I'm joined by Nick Sarator to talk a little bit about it. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jackie. And right now, Harvest Moon is one of the showcases that we offer our members throughout the year. We always have a theme, and we usually do it once or twice a year. And this year, we decided to get away from the bright daylight of the beach, marsh scenes, agriculture, which is a big industry down here, and we've decided to focus on the harvest moon, the great big moon that shines over the ocean. And we challenged our members to come up with ideas or paintings of what they feel about harvest moon. And these images are based on their own creativity.
Now, the images are so diverse, not only in their subject matter and in their styles, but in the medium themselves. You have everything from glass to textiles to canvas. Now, I want to start with one piece that is particularly striking, and that's luminosity. That moon is just so electric. It's
very intense. The artist is Jeff Riddle, and he really captured what it is to have moon glow at nighttime. Sometimes you can read a book to it, but there's also kind of like an eerie quality to his piece. It almost has like an enchanting, haunting feel to it. But the way he captured the light through the trees, it really invites the viewer in, and also you can get lost in that painting. So it's a very striking, strong rendition of a harvest moon.
Absolutely, and if you get really close, some of the branches on the paint has cracked in such a way that it really gives it a texture, you know?
It has, like, again, an eerie feeling to it, and that's the beauty of like his technique. You know, it's the brush strokes that create those kind of movements and the cracks in the surfaces. And like, again, to capture that light shining on it is quite remarkable.
Absolutely. We would be remiss not to talk about what looks like an open grave underneath this tree.
That's the whole, exactly. When you really look at it, you feel like you're in a graveyard almost, but even though you're not. So you've really captured a moment, a feeling. And again, it could be enchanting, it could be eerie. So again, it's a great piece.
Now, there's another piece in the show that I think really stands out, and that would be the piece made of, is it wool?
It is wool. It's a fiber art. Catherine Luciano, her work is phenomenal. And again, she's working with fiber. And to actually capture the moment of a moon in the fiber art itself is quite remarkable. And her tapestry has a feel to it, you know, it's a tapestry feeling. But she was able to capture a scene using that medium, which I think would be quite difficult to do. And it's almost like painting a picture with thread.
Absolutely, and I can just imagine the hours that must have gone into that. How much notice did you give the membership?
Okay, well, when we put in a call for entry out, it's usually 6 months in advance. So we had quite a few people who registered for it. Our judge this year was Ellen Roney Hughes, who's also on the Board of Trustees. And she narrowed it down to these select pieces for this show. So again, the artists have plenty of time to figure out what they're going to do. They can submit up to 2 images, and they're all great. It's really a tough job to try to judge these showcases because the work is phenomenal. But again, it got down to just around 14 works that made it into the show.
Now I want to ask you about the piece that's to the side here,
yes.
Love's Moon. It's black and white. You can't touch it, but you want to because just of the depth of the colors, or of the different shades, I should say. There's no real color, but
yeah, yes. Yvonne Francis is the artist, and she works strictly using the grayscale, and she's actually able to capture water, daylight, nighttime, just using the black and white acrylic. And that's the beauty of her work. And of course, she wanted to go large on this because she wanted to really capture that moon. She didn't want the, a lot of times you get a painting where the moon's like way in the background or up in the distance. She wanted this to be the focal point. And that's why you have such a large rendition of the moon. And it feels like you're right on the water right there.
Absolutely. Now, is this indicative of the rest of her work? Does she do mostly grayscale work? Or?
Yes, she does. She does. It's very evocative of her work. Her work is very consistent. Sometimes you'll get canvases where just pure white, and there's just like whatever she's focusing on, whether it's like a tree limb or grasses, they're very delicate. Just very delicate in her brushwork, and the paintings are like real minimal. Like a real minimalist style to them.
It's amazing when you look at it, just the depth. You can really see the water rippling, and it's kind of calming, but at the same time, there's something about the moon that gives you a sense of comfort, but yet unease. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Like even for myself, when I see like the moon or harvest moon, it's like you just like stop and go, wow, look at that. And you come in almost like a contemplative state. It's something magical and eerie and mystical about it at the same time. And of course, the full moon affects everybody. It's like as the old folk tales go and folklore. But there's just something magical about it. And the harvest moon, of course, is when you see it when it's its biggest. And so of course we see it throughout the year. The strawberry moon, we have like the eclipse sometimes. But the harvest moon, when it comes around, it's just magical.
Now we're going to talk more about this showcase when we return.
My name is Johnny Baker. I'm the Education Curator here at the Historic Odessa Foundation, and I love historic cooking on the 302.
Welcome back. Now, Nick, the painting that we see just over our shoulder here, Moon Over the Broadkill River. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Susan Petz Rosenblum. That's a pastel that she has created, and it's on a small scale, if you notice, compared to several of the artworks that are in here. The quality of her pastel is very soft. So again, when we're talking about a contemplative state, that's what the judge had seen within this piece. If you notice that the moon's not really rendered, it's very soft, it's very impressionistic. So it evokes that quiet time when the sun has gone down, the moon's coming out. Again, it's over the Broadkill. She kept it very minimal, not a lot of detail involved with it. So that's what makes this piece very striking.
It's really lovely. It's kind of like the haze of the moon.
Yes.
And you can almost imagine the quietness and the solitude.
There's a peacefulness about that painting. Completely.
Absolutely. Now, when we're talking about this showcase, while it's called Harvest Moon, not all of the pieces have a moon in them. Specifically, you've got one that is of grasses, which looks like a marsh, maybe?
And that's the idea of Harvest Moon as well. Just, that's why we gave the artists their opportunity to capture what they felt a harvest moon is. Now, we also think of the word harvest. So we don't necessarily have to have a moon. We can have the fields of gold, things that are being sowed, something that's being reaped during that time. Things change color, even settings, like water, the elements, even our backyard, bushes start to dry up. So they also captured that time. That moment, that's also part of the harvest moon. Just basically a day-to-day things that we see during that time, and how our surroundings change. So that's what some of the artists had captured, not necessarily focusing on the mood, but focusing what's in front of them.
Sure, sure. And the other piece that doesn't have a moon in it is really beautiful. It's just a sailboat on the water on the horizon.
Exactly.
Like, the moon's there somewhere, but you don't actually see it.
No, what you do is you feel the light from the moon. That's what you're feeling. That's what you're being casted into the water. It's that quiet, peaceful time. And again, when we go back to thinking about harvest moon, and things are changing. Things are more calm. It's like the end of a busy summer, So the relaxation of the boat out at sea, enjoying the elements, looking up at the sky. You don't necessarily have to see the moon, but it's the light that's cast on the sailboat itself that's quite striking.
Absolutely. And when you look at the pieces, most of them, you see the moon or you see nature, but there's one piece that you see if you were to walk out your back door, the artist has chosen to share, you know, the glow of the moon from the backyard.
Yes, and that's one of the photograph that we have of it. It's just captured that. And what makes that piece really powerful, one, the canvas, it's a archival digital print on canvas. It's not a large piece, but she captured that moon dead center. And that orange glow to it. You can just see the nooks and crannies and craters of the moon. But something so simple sometimes works. Sometimes less is more. And so you have that jet black background, and you just have that the moon right smack dab in the middle of the canvas that brings the viewer into it.
So as far as it being a picture, I mean, did she do anything, any kind of color work or anything on the photo?
No, it's just an actual, it's not been photoshopped, it's what she caught on her camera.
Amazing. It really is breathtaking, because it's what you think of when you think of a harvest moon, you know, the richness of the color, the orange, and yet she did nothing to, I mean, just captured it just right.
Captured the size of it, and that's when we think of the harvest moon, we think of it as very large.
Right.
A big orange ball in the sky.
A lot of people forget how difficult it is to take a picture of that magnitude. You know, it takes a lot of training and skill. And now, is this indicative of her work? Does she do a lot of nature?
A lot of nature, everything. She captures her surroundings, really. So I think it's always like the photographer's curse that you always have to have a camera, because you're going to see that aha moment that you have to capture it. And I think that's what Standard does.
Absolutely. So we're going from photography to almost abstract art when we talk about shine on.
Yes.
Now tell me what's happening in this piece.
Susan Fry has quite an imagination, and she's an abstract artist, and she incorporates different elements into her work. She's really recently gotten into more of like the digital part of painting, and she also incorporates her actual hands-on art with it as well. But you have to really look at the piece to see what's going on in it. There's all these kind of hidden messages that refer to the moon, and there's these shapes at first when you look at them you don't get it, but when you view it more you start to get that aha moment. You can see what she's doing within these pieces. And again, if you look at it, like, well, what does that have to do with the harvest moon? But when you look at it and really study it, that's the power of the painting.
Absolutely, and that's what you should do, I think, whenever you go to a show like this, is plan a little bit of time, maybe, you know, take in lunch afterwards, but just sit in front of the various pieces and try to figure out what it is the artist is trying to say, because sometimes you can see it all if you just take time.
If you just take time, and of course when you have this kind of subject matter, harvest moon, you probably already have this this idea that you're going to walk into a gallery and just see harvest moon paintings, but it's not. So that's what the beauty of the judge did, was able to extract different mediums, different ideas that all weren't so similar. So it's a very diverse show.
Absolutely, and there's still more to talk about when we return.
I'm Debbie Buxton, the Executive Director of the Historic Odessa Foundation. Come discover Odessa with the 302.
Welcome back. Now, Nick, I've left three pieces, my three favorite pieces, for the very end, and I want to start with the fused glass piece.
Yes.
That is gorgeous.
It really is, and it's nice to see something that's not hanging on the wall. So, of course, you know, with this show, most of the entries were two-dimensional works, where the judge saw this piece by Fabiola Fiora, and it really incorporates the elements of a harvest moon. And again, it's abstract. It's a square plate. It's not a plate. It sits on a pedestal. It's got weight to it. But there's all these elements that she created within this glass piece. And again, it's all fused together. So there's a lot of work involved with that. But she was able to capture the harvest moon in this piece, which makes it remarkable.
It really is gorgeous when you look at the time it must have taken, you know, to sprinkle the pieces of colored glass along the borders and the different panels, and it's really, and the way the light hits it is really breathtaking.
Yes, and something like that has to be done in stages as well. It's not like a one-time thing. So the glass has to be heated up. Her colors have to be just right. She's adding texture to it. She's painting a picture in glass. And that's, unlike a stained glass where it's pieced together, this is like melting into each other. So again, I think there's critical stages when you're doing something like that. But again, it was nice to have this three-dimensional work included into the show. Kind of breaks it up a little bit from looking at too many things that are on the wall where you look down, now you see this object being displayed.
Absolutely, it adds to the versatility of the show
Absolutely.
itself. One of the more whimsical, I think, pieces, Moon Dance. Really big, really colorful.
Again, from Susan Fry, it's remarkable. Sometimes you look at these figures floating around the moon, you don't know if they're stars, you don't know if they're spirits, moon spirits, but when you look at it, when it was on the floor, I was trying to make out what was going on, but when you hang it up and you see it at eye level, it was a very striking piece, very striking. And again, just almost has a whimsical feel to it. It's totally different from a harvest moon. She's focusing out in space. Again, it's just like these spirits. It's just a really fun piece.
It really is. And, you know, we talked about standing there and looking at a piece. When we first came in, that was the first thing I saw. And I was trying to figure out, as you had mentioned, are these spirits? What's happening here? And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, it says, or it looks like it says, loving. Mm-hmm. So there's like a message.
There is a message to it, and I think that, you know, it's only the artist can interpret it or the viewer can interpret it themselves. And it's really interesting to have that wording in there because everything else is just painted, and that's like the only message that's there. So it's really for the viewer to take away with what they feel about it, you know, and it's their own.
Yeah, it's kind of like a gift. Mm-hmm. You know, what you take away from it is different from, you know, if you look at it and I look at it, we come away with different perspectives, but it's a gift from the artist.
It is, and with artwork too, it's like the viewer gets immersed in their own experience. So everything affects you differently, affects everyone differently.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes triggering memories and things. Like,
absolutely.
The one painting that's super vivid, the grandmother moon. Mm-hmm. The colors are so bright.
Very striking.
Mean, you know, really that's the kind of thing that can trigger, you know, mm-hmm. summertime memories, you know, looking at the moon. Gorgeous.
It is, and it's their coloring too on that painting. A real rich, deep cobalt blue. And again, she painted the moon, and she didn't do it small either. So on this small scale painting, you're in the water, you're surrounded by this lush blue, but then the contrast of this large orange sphere rising above the water makes that painting very striking. Even with this gold frame, everything ties together with it perfectly. And it's called Grandmother Moon, and it's a fantastic piece. And again, I like the way the artist really captured the ripples of moonlight on the water, but it's almost done in an abstract feel to it. It's not impressionistic. It's not a soft rendering. It's very, very graphic, very graphic in nature. Sometimes I look at it and I was like, you can feel that it's almost like a printmaking, but it's not. It's a painting, and again, a small scale, focus on the moon on a large scale. So there's a lot going on in a small painting.
And it's really interesting, you know, how not the brush strokes, but the way the paint is applied around the moon.
Composition.
Kind of, to give it that glow. It's really gorgeous.
Yeah, she hit the nail on the head with that one. But again, the composition is really nice too. Usually you don't want to center things, but she kind of centered it, and it just works.
Absolutely. So whenever people come to visit and see your shows, typically they're in the larger gallery space. But you chose to have this show here. Tell us why.
The homestead where the Harvest Moon is being showcased dates back to 1743, and it's on a historic registry. But we have shows in here, and what makes this work is sometimes, like, we have abstract shows, landscape shows. What makes it work is that you're pairing contemporary art against an old structure. And it also gives people a feeling of what it would look like in their home. Again, you have old beams, you have really old fireplaces, old furniture, antiques. I shouldn't say old, but they're antiques. Mm-hmm. And nothing gets mounted into the wall. Everything's on a hanging system because the walls are plaster. And again, sometimes pairing an abstract piece of art against this setting really makes it pop. And so, because of the size of the show, it's also more on an intimate level. It's not in a big, wide open gallery space where there's a lot of work to look at with high ceilings and a lot of light. People come in here and it's quiet. And again, they can get an idea of what something feels like in their own home. So that's what makes this show work within this facility.
Well, it really is a fascinating show. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back. For more information on any of the shows here at the Rehoboth Art League, visit RehobothArtLeague.org. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 302. We're going to leave you now with some beauty shots from Cape Henlopen State Park. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on the 302.